Morning, Bellows Falls, and welcome to the feed. It's Mike, and today we have guest host Vern Temple. He's often a guest speaker, but today he's a host. So how you doing, Vern?
It's good to be back. I always love enjoying spending Wednesday mornings here, filling in for Marty.
Where is Marty? She's off researching another show. We'll leave it at that. Let's call. She's doing some in-depth research.
Marty's having a great day.
Yeah.
Marty will be back next week.
Yeah, Marty will be back next week, so look forward, and maybe she'll report on her experience of today. We're going to get going with the show, but first we have some local events. This coming Saturday, there's going to be a mushroom ID foray with Justin Gardner, who has come on the show several times.
Justin's great. If you have interest in this subject and you want to see about mushrooms and edible mushrooms and non-edible mushrooms,
and
Justin is the expert to bring you out there and to show you how to harvest them, which ones to harvest.
Yeah,
it would be an entertaining morning.
So it's at 10 a.m. from 10 to 12 this Saturday at Myers Pond. It costs $25. He's going to identify edible and medicinal mushrooms, and he says dress for a hike, because you don't just stand around. You hike around, and he said bring bug spray and water. So that's this Saturday on the 18th. Another quick news event is we had elections yesterday.
Oh, I hope everyone got out and voted.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people said, well, it's a midterm election and blah, blah, blah. But I actually think, in Vermont at least, I think there was a higher turnout than normal midterms. I'm not sure. But it seemed busy at the polling places when I went down yesterday. But
well, one of the things I think of the controversial arena of politics these days, that more people are aware that their vote counts. And it doesn't matter which side of that you're on, but voting gets people in the middle.
Yeah. And I actually think yesterday it counted more than most, because especially in the governor race. It was the congressman and the senator races, they were sort of runaways, but the governor race was really close. It was closer than most people would have liked on both sides, I think. Yeah. Phil Scott won, but he was threatened, and he was threatened from the right, of all places. And Christine Hallquist won, and she actually did well, almost got 50% of the vote, but she had three challengers. So it was a pretty contested election.
Well, we'll see where it ends up in November.
Yes, sounds good. So we have a guest today.
Yes, and I'm going to
When did you guys meet?
I'm going to do the introduction. When Mike asked me to get a guest, I thought, boy, what a great idea to bring my son in. But it would seem a little narcissistic. And Mike said that the N in Fact TV stood for narcissism, and that would be okay. So we have Dr. Brad Temple here.
And nepotistic.
What did I say? Oh, I said narcissism.
Yeah,
nepotism. Nepotism. So full disclosure, he is my son, so if it appears like I give him a hard question, that won't happen. In addition to being a doctor of veterinary medicine, his largest claim to fame, and the thing we're most proud of, is the lovely wife that he married and the fantastic granddaughter that he gave us. But he is a graduate of Bellows Falls Union High School. What year?
97.
All right.
97. Did some time in Champlain, the college, and
the lake.
Yeah. And then went on to the University of South Carolina, and then eventually to the University of Georgia with a degree in Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. So welcome.
Thank you.
No tough questions.
No tough questions.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
You said a lot of it. So I graduated from here in Bellows Falls in 1997. From there, I went in the Marines. I was there till 2002. I got out, went to Champlain College for about a year, and then moved down south. Eventually down to South Carolina, and then to Georgia to get a master's, and then a degree in veterinary medicine, and then finally decided to move back home.
So did you go south because you wanted to go south, or because you were going to school? I mean, was it?
No,
was it a both?
I ended up down south in the service. So I was in North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
So I'd already been down there for a while, and then when I decided to take some time off from Champlain College and then decided to go back to school eventually, I had a friend that was living in South Carolina at the time, and I figured, well, I'll go back down south and have some fun in the sun for a while.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good. Yeah. Where in South Carolina?
Aiken, South Carolina, so just across the border from Georgia.
Oh, wow. Really South
Yeah,
Carolina.
really South Carolina.
Yeah. Cool.
You thought he was going to be a Southern boy.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of an accent. He picked it up.
So, any of the audience out there that have kids that don't know which direction they're going to go in, Brad wasn't sure he wanted to go to college.
Uh-huh.
Then he joined the Marine Corps.
And then-
And after 4 years, he came up and said, "So is that college thing still on the table?" And geez, then it was 7 years later. So we're proud of him. Tell us a little bit. Let's talk about veterinarian medicine, but tell us a little bit about where you practice, and I think people would be interested in how you survived the fire 6 months after you owned the practice.
Yeah, so I started. It's almost 4 years ago. I took a position at Springfield Animal Hospital back when it was owned by Tony Castrignano. Worked there for 2 years under him, and then he sold the practice to Dr. Dina Meehan and myself. So she is the co-owner of the practice. We bought it in June 2 years ago, so June 2016 or so. And then 6 months after owning the practice, we were at a meeting one night, and my phone rang, and the staff said, "The building's on fire."
Holy
But
cow.
being Vermont, you don't have the best cell reception, so at that time the phone kind of cut out.
Uh-huh.
So we drove down Pleasant Street from Chester, wondering whether or not I was going to see a little flame popping out of the chimney or whether or not I was going to see a big giant blaze. And so that was probably the longest 15 minutes of my life and the fastest I've ever driven down Chester Road. So we got there, and the Springfield Fire Department, Ludlow, Bellows Falls, I mean, all the local fire departments were already there. They did a wonderful job controlling the fire. And actually, there was a minimal amount of damage to the building from the fire, but unfortunately, smoke filled the entire practice.
Yeah.
So after months of kind of discussing with the insurance company, it ended up being that the hospital kind of needed to get completely redone. So we took
Like,
about...
did they take the whole building down? Or
No,
did
they took down they took down all the sheetrock, all the electrical
Yeah, so
wiring,
they
all the
gutted it.
plumbing. They gutted it.
Yeah.
They ended up rebuilding the backside of the roof, put a new roof on, all new sheetrock. We decided that time that you might as well fix some things that we wanted to fix. So we put in all new windows, new insulation, kind of updated the entire building. So for all intents and purposes, it's a brand new hospital as of 2 years ago. So not the best way to get into a practice, but it's kind of like jumping in the deep end. You just get through it.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that as dramatic as it is to have your place of business burn like that, is that ultimately what he has now is state-of-the-art equipment, state-of-the-art building and practice. It's a very impressive building
Yeah.
to walk through. You think you're at Tufts University Veterinarian Hospital.
And that's sort of one of the things we wanted to talk about today is the evolution of veterinary medicine, really, because it seems like, and maybe it's just me, but it seems like it's really gone from being sort of like take your pet in every once in a while to like it's like me going in.
It's healthcare.
Yeah, it's health.
It's healthcare.
Yeah,
for
no,
animals.
it's made leaps and bounds. I mean, you're
Yeah.
right. So 15, 20 years ago, you brought your pet in for shots or vaccines,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
did a checkup. And if they were sick, maybe, you got some antibiotics, you got some pain medicine, and, let's see what happens. And now it's really progressed to, the same thing that you'll get. X-rays, endoscopy, CT scans, surgeries of all sorts, from, tiny little skin tags taken off like you would at the dermatologist, all the way up to, having part of your liver taken out if it's diseased. And the dogs do great. I mean, they do really well. They recover faster than we do. I mean, there's surgeries we do on a daily basis that I look at the dog that's running out the door and think, if that was me, I'd still be in the hospital for 3 days. So it's come a long way, and it's nice to see, to be able to offer people options for their pets other than just, well, let's try this and see what happens kind of thing.
Right.
So let's talk about, you said endoscopy. I know you're one of the few veterinarians in the area that has endoscopy. Let's talk about that. Tell the audience what that is and what you can accomplish with it.
Yeah, so endoscopy is the practice of basically you end up taking a small camera, and so there's two types. There's gastrointestinal endoscopy, where it's a long tube that passes down through the mouth into the GI tract, or goes up the rectum into the GI tract, and there's a camera on the end of it. And so you can actually visualize the intestines and any disease that's there, and then there's another tube that lies next to it that you can pass instruments through, so you can take biopsies.
Oh, wow.
So it's a great non-invasive way to take biopsies. You know, it's if you do an upper GI endoscopy, so looking at just the stomach and the upper part of the small intestines and the esophagus, they come in that morning and they go home that afternoon. And you've gotten your biopsies, you can send it out for sampling for all sorts of different diseases, from inflammatory bowel to, you know, cancer to, you know, whatever you can kind of think of. And it's nice because there's no incisions, there's no wounds to heal up, there's no uncomfortableness that comes along with, you know, the traditional procedure, which would be making an incision into the abdomen and doing an explore.
And that's also true. I know you tell me that quite often, especially dogs, they like to eat things.
Yep. So it works great for taking out objects that they shouldn't have eaten. So I think just 2 weeks ago, we had a puppy that swallowed a sewing needle. So we were able to go in and take that out. And again, instead of a traditional surgery, you went in, you grab the needle, you come out, you're done in 30, 45 minutes, and the puppy goes home.
Kind of like
To eat another needle.
kind of like a stitch in time. I think also it was fun. We stopped in the other day, and he said he'd taken some stones out of a dog. And I looked at the dog, and I thought, well, that's a pretty young dog to have kidney stones or bladder stones. And,
No, they were
and he
stones.
turned
No, they were
around and he
stones.
said, no, they were stones. And he had a baggie full of three-quarter
Yeah.
inch granite stones.
That's interesting. Did you find the needle by X-ray and then go in afterwards, or
Yeah,
how did
so-
you know that the needle was there?
We didn't actually.
Finding
We
it
actually
in the
we took X-rays for a different reason, and happened to see it in the stomach. So it wasn't
Wow.
even known that it had
Yeah,
been
yeah.
swallowed. So it worked out well. So then we were able to go in and kind of give the bad news. Well, you know, congratulations, the bladder looks okay,
But
but there's a sewing needle in the dog's stomach.
cow.
So it's great, you know. Again, instead of an hour and a half procedure with a wound that's got to heal for 10 days afterwards, they're home that night. I think I talked to the owner the next day, and the dog was doing great, like nothing had ever happened.
Great.
So it's a nice modality to have in the practice. You know, I went to a class, and then Dr. Meehan went to a class as well, and we really realized that, you know, it's a big step for a small practice like ours to have that type of equipment. I mean, it was only Tufts that had that type
Right.
of stuff, but we decided that it was a step that we wanted to take, and it's worked out really, really well.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Because we just had a thing with our dog recently, and they actually had an ultrasound that was done, but it was like a traveler that
Yep.
they do. Do you do a similar?
We do, yeah.
Similar
There's
things? Is that
a gentleman.
Cooperative.
Yep. Dr. Eric Peterson's a board certified internist that travels around the area, and we use him fairly regularly. I mean, at least once a week, if not twice a week, he'll come in. And you know, he does the same level ultrasound you get down at the specialty center. You know, you get a
Yeah,
consult
yeah.
with an internist, and it's great because again, it's hard in this area. You know, you're 2.5 hours from any place like that, and that's a long drive. And if your dog's sick and they're vomiting, you don't really want to put them in the car for 2.5 hours, or you've got to take time off of work. That's an all-day excursion versus just being able to bring them to the clinic and say, hey, let's get the same level of care I can get in Boston here. I can go to work. I'll come pick the dog up or the cat up at the end of the day, and you know, find out what's going on and make a plan from there.
But now you also have ultrasound.
We do. We do our own ultrasounds for, you know, there are situations where we'll do an ultrasound and say, yep, you know, I know what the problem is, there it is. Or there are other situations where you say, you know, this is a more in-depth disease than I'm comfortable doing an ultrasound for, and, you know, let's get a specialist to come in and look.
That's pretty amazing. Because, I mean, it is really healthcare. I mean, it's no longer just the vet who is sort of out on its own, doing his own thing. It's like, do you guys consult by conference call and stuff too? Like the idea that you might need a consult from someone else.
So a lot of the
do it on Skype or
a lot of the bigger labs will let you consult, so they keep vets on staff. So you'll
Uh-huh.
call and say, yeah, I've got a dog with, you know, or cat with
This,
this
this, and this.
disease. I want to talk about, you know, treatment options. So that exists, and it's used quite a bit. Skype, not as much. I guess it'll be interesting to see where that goes in the future. There's a big talk about telemedicine and
Yeah.
the legality of telemedicine. You know, you're in California and I'm in Vermont, and you're telling me what to do with my pet. And
Yeah.
is that okay? And I don't think anyone knows the answer to that
Those
yet.
are big issues in.
Well, in
US
licensing, I do a lot in licensing, and those are issues. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
where is the responsibility and where is the licensure requirement?
Right.
There's a difference between consulting and gathering information and you making the decision versus someone in California making the decision. But Also, I think so. You have the endoscopy unit. You have ultrasound, X-ray also.
Yep. So X-ray, endoscopy, ultrasound, and then a whole panel of blood machines, so we can run almost all the blood we need in house. I mean, we send out a lot of samples because there are certain things that are better done at an outside lab, but we can pretty much do all in-house diagnostics that we need to do if your pet comes in sick that day and we need answers then. So it's a fully functional hospital. There's nothing that, the Springfield Hospital has that we don't have outside of CT and MRI.
And yet, just as another point, you deal with multiple species. Springfield Hospital only deals with one species.
Two versions.
Two versions, but
One
still.
species.
You have, and then that's a whole other question: is do you guys do large animal work?
We
there,
don't
or-
do large animal work.
And is veterinary medicine sort of splitting off into sort of specialties like that? too?
It
Or
is.
some people
There's,
do-
it used to be mixed animal practices around a lot, and then school still offers mixed animal things. I started that way, and then after I rectaled my first cow, I realized I'm entirely too short to go into that type of medicine.
Not a long enough
My
arm.
arm's just not long enough. But a lot
You
of the
don't think
farms,
that going in, you know?
you don't think of it until you're already there.
Then it's too late.
A lot of the farms, they're big now, and large animal medicine is geared just as much towards the individual treatment as herd medicine, and so they want someone whose sole focus is nutrition and what are they going to do to
Really?
keep the herd
Yeah.
as healthy as possible, and that's a big full-time job, and it really jack of all trades or a master of none kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I know that Hubbard Farms, right across the river, they always had a full-time veterinarian
Just-
in-house just to deal with the problems they
Right.
would have. So with that, so give us an idea of what's the most. Even though you see a lot of animals, I would assume a lot of it is dogs and cats, and you get the
Dogs
occasional
and cats. We see a lot more rabbits. They're becoming more popular.
Really?
So rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, an occasional bird.
What's the most common with dogs? What's the most common malady that they come in with? What's the most common situation?
Either vomiting and diarrhea or skin infections are probably the top two that you see on a daily basis.
And then it's vomit. Is it sort of like ingesting things that they shouldn't have, or is it a disease? Because I found that fascinating about you were saying about the stones. That's like, yeah,
That's always the trick. I think it's probably 50-50. Just, went out in the yard and ate something in the grass. It isn't a problem, isn't visible on x-ray and just making them feel a little nauseous.
Yeah.
Versus, I went out and ate 37 stones and, or a sewing needle. And so that's what's tough. They come in and you look and on physical exam, there's really not much wrong. And so I know, sometimes I imagine as a client when you come in and we say, well, we want to do some blood work and take x-rays. And you go, gosh, they've only been vomiting for 24 hours. Or, less than that. Well, yeah, but if there's a needle in the stomach and I look now and I can take it out now versus if it makes it halfway down the intestinal tract and then you're looking at surgery. So I think as a practice, we are aggressive in the amount of imaging that we take for those cases. And, it's always good to take the image and say, yeah, there's nothing there. So let's give them 24 hours with some, GI protectant drugs and see how they do versus, the wait and see approach. If there's nothing wrong, works great, but if there's something wrong, you can find yourself in a worse situation. So we tend to try to be aggressive of catching things as soon as we can and fixing them.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting also that, as you said, veterinarian health care is almost mirroring general health care for the rest of us. And they now have insurance,
Now, I was just
health
gonna ask you,
insurance for animals.
They do. They have health insurance for animals. There's multiple different companies. If you look online, there's at least 10 or 15. I don't work with them all. We don't sponsor one directly. I do like Trupanion for a lot of different reasons. I think they've been one of the easiest ones to work with. Sounds like I'm selling them now, but they have a local representative. So if you have an issue, I'm not calling someone in Kansas to get a discussion. I call them and say, hey, you need to fix this.
Yeah.
And the other nice thing is that they have started a program where they'll pay the hospital directly. Which is nice because a lot of the way the insurance plans worked was you get reimbursed for your cost, which is great, but if you've got to do a total hip replacement and that's going to be $5,000 and you don't have the $5,000 to put down to wait to get reimbursed, then you're still kind of stuck. You've got the insurance,
Yeah.
but it's not as beneficial as it would have been.
Right, yeah.
Versus if you've got something like Trupanion and the hospital accepts payment, then you are only out of pocket for your deductible and your copay.
Yeah, so the insurance is actually paralleling also,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I think that the original model of health insurance was that you got reimbursed
Yeah.
the same way, and now it's direct payment,
And, you know,
direct
there's-
billing and payment.
It's got a long way to go. I think from a standpoint, I think we've done some of the breakdowns, and the cost for your typical small, 30, 40-pound dog, if they get insured as a puppy, is going to be somewhere between $35 to $40 a month, with anywhere from a $0 to $1,000 deductible. I usually tell people to stay under $250. And so that, the life of the dog, comes out to $3,000 or $4,000. I've easily, that's one
Yeah.
surgery.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. What does that cover? Does that cover surgery?
It covers all. It
like,
covers all
shots
sick
and-
stuff. It doesn't cover shots, or at least for Trupanion. There are
Yeah,
some
yeah.
that do cover shots. For Trupanion, they cover illnesses. So, I ate something. I've got kidney disease. I've got arthritis. I've got bad hips.
Yeah.
Any of those types of things. It doesn't cover your routine dental care. So they'll pay for extractions, but they won't pay for cleaning.
Yeah,
So they say, hey, if you'll take care of your pet, then we'll help protect you when the
You know,
unexpected
catastrophic.
happens.
It's
Yeah.
more catastrophic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's interesting. You mentioned dental care. Now you have a dental suite in the office, which
We
is
do.
designed just for that. Is that common these days?
It's becoming much more common. I think probably 90% of practices, and I think almost all the practices that I'm aware of in the area offer dentistry. And I think the practices that are fortunate enough to expand, or unfortunate enough in our case to expand with what we went through, are adding in that area where you can do the dentistry completely separate of the rest of the hospital. And it's nice because you're able to kind of close that area off, and the x-rays are kept away from the staff, and then it's quiet to do the procedure. And it's a long procedure. It's probably 2.5 hours when you're doing a dental procedure, especially if you're doing 5 or 6 extractions at a time.
yeah.
Wow.
Do you is that another training specialty? Is there like, because we, people have dentists
Yep.
and they have doctors, and they're two different things.
Yeah, no, there is. There's classes that
okay.
general practitioners. I know Dr. Lori Livingston and Dr. Dina Meehan. Said Dr. Meehan's the other another practice. They both went to a specialty class in Maryland a few years ago to get trained. And there are board certified dentists that do more higher end procedures than we'll do. So simple, putting crowns on, those types of things
Yeah,
that
yeah.
can be done. Where we're do more of what you would consider kind of your basic dentistry, cleaning, those types of things, but then also extractions.
Yeah.
But it's come a long way. I mean, I imagine within the next few years, our clinic will probably offer the ability to, do root canals rather than just having to
Yeah,
do
because we had
extractions.
one of our dogs had to have a root canal, and we ended up going to White River, but
Yep.
just that they could do a root canal was a nice option. That it was because it was a front tooth, and they said they would have to
Windsor, there's Windsor Veterinary and Dental Services,
Yeah,
and they do an amazing job up there.
Yeah.
Dr. Sandy Waugh has been doing dentistry for, I think, 20 plus years, and she's not board certified, but she is board certified, if that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah,
she's got
yeah.
just as much experience as someone who's board certified in it, and that's where we send a lot of our cases that are too complex for us to handle at this time.
Okay, we're going to run out of time here in
Yes,
a
we
minute,
are
so I
running
think
out of
just
time.
to wrap things up, you give us a few hints as to how we should do with keeping our dogs and cats healthy. What's the most
yeah, we
important
should've
issue
done
to
that
look
earlier.
at?
Yeah, no, so I mean the biggest thing is, getting your yearly checkup and, 6-month checkup as they get older. Really push for, the same thing as the people. As they get older, routine blood work to look for any type of underlying kidney or liver issues or anything that might be going on that isn't obvious on physical exam. The sooner you can catch a problem, the better you can treat it. And then being proactive when there is a problem. You know, I know it's hard to say, well, I'm really busy, you know, the dog's been sick for a few days, but let's just give it another couple days and see what happens. The sooner you can get in, you know, the sooner we can fix the problem. And so we always, you know, for our practice, we leave time aside every day for people that have a problem that day, so that you're not stuck saying, well, we can't get you in, you're going to have to wait a week or two. You know, nope, there's always a spot available. And so if you think there's a problem, let us take a look and see if we can find out if there is or isn't.
And you're right in North Springfield.
We are right in North Springfield on River Street, just past Black Rock.
So, this has been great. I want to thank you for coming on, but what you've done for me is like you're going to have to come back. Because you just hit on it. I was like, we should have talked about all these myths and, you know, what you should do about, well, you know, like should a dog eat bones or not eat bones?
Oh, we could do a weekly session. There's so much to cover.
There's so much stuff, and that we're talking about. I just saw a thing the other day about the new high protein dog foods might actually be missing some.
So it's the grain-free diets
exactly.
that there's some research coming out now that they may be causing heart conditions in dogs.
Yeah,
and they're
so
not
you should
sure
come
yet,
back
but
and
it's
talk
possible.
about it.
Yeah,
Boy, that's
absolutely.
another whole show.
Yeah,
I'm going to
that's
have to
all-
make Marty go away again. Hey,
Well,
we
maybe
want to
that-
thank you for
yeah,
coming.
thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you.
It's hope we didn't throw too many tough questions at you.
No, they could get tougher next time.
All right, we'll
Thank
work
you.
on that. And that's it for this week. That's it for the feed. We look forward to seeing you next week, and hope Marty can make it back. Thank you, Dr. Temple, for helping out.
Thank you, Marty. Get well. We'll see you next week.
All right.
That's it, folks, for the feed. Be sure to catch us every Wednesdays at 7:30 a.m. Also, find us on Facebook at Fact TV or tell us what you think. thefeed8@gmail.com. And don't forget to watch the feed online at www.fact8.com.